I believe that De Palma's invention, the glass, or when Einstein extended the very concept of energy to matter in this very century. Well, it's claimed that there were many others who developed this equation of E is equal to mc squared, sure, but it was he who was bold enough to proclaim and say that each piece of matter, each speck of matter that you hold, it is constituted of energy. Such is going to be the repercussions of this invention of De Palma, on which I came to know in the year 1977. I say so with the conviction because I then, having learned at that time, was already working on a theory which in fact is space dynamics. Now, as we all know, that today we do not have such literature, at least in the body of accepted physical knowledge, which we can take and say that let's apply this equation, let's apply this relationship, and see if really power is coming out of vacuum. That does not mean that the present scientific knowledge is wrong. Never in the history of science any theory was totally wrong, and never shall a theory will be totally wrong in future, because the very process of gaining knowledge and the evolution of the scientific theories are such that human mind works, and there are certain moral aspects in the inventors, and there is certain guidance and intuition that he may err in some portions, but not at all, and never in all portions. So it's a tough job, but for me, fortunately, it became very, very easy, because in the year 1977, having struggled out of pure interest, not at all out of professional needs, determined to make a model of electron, which makes me understand what electronic charge is. The first thing which a student of electrical engineering needs to know. That led to a question, why not also ask what electronic mass is? And so on and so forth. The available literature goes up to a certain point, gives you the value derived by experimental results. Coulombs gives us the equations, and the concepts grow from time to time. It was just not possible out of the available literature to say that mass is such and such, why its quantity is such and such, why it charge such and such, what in fact is the electronic structure. Does the electrostatic field of the electron varying continuously in space, does it go all the way to its center or stop somewhere? Sure, our experiments have so far not given us that much of knowledge, and perhaps they may not, because we are really dealing with sub-quantum entities. So such was the situation, and that led me to the theory, of which the brief conceptual part alone I would be able to talk and touch, surely not the full mathematics of it, and had succeeded to a good extent. Had a bit of a sympathetic reciprocation from some professors of competence, but all the way, of course, led all by myself to develop it. It is at that time, when De Palma's later, in 77 or 78, May I got, and I could see with clarity that here is an experiment. If at all there is any meaning in the equations that I have developed in the space vortex theory, come on, apply it, and if that is it, then be bold and proclaim. Otherwise, I don't think any physicist is going to come and give you an experiment to perform and the delicate data to make you develop your own theory. So, now, before I go on the main body of the theory, I will first show you that my talk is going to be on two aspects. One is the practical aspects, to support and convince me and the rest of the world that yes, young generators of De Palma do produce power in which the incremental power ratio is more than unity, because you know in atomic stations where every atomic station is established with precise laboratories, and data can be measured. Our own country has benefited a lot with USA and Canada. That's all well known. So in those precise conditions and with precision measurements, there should be no ambiguity of the measurement. Secondly, it's such a blatant denial of the present convention of some of the laws of physics that you get powers in kilowatts. You get currents in thousands of amperes. It is not a degree and a minute of deviation of a starlight. Or it is not changing instruments in microamperes and milliamperes. No, far, far from it. Which electrical engineer has seen 5,000 amperes of current flowing out at 1.5 volts? Especially in a phenomena in which there is absolutely no relative motion between the magnetic field and the conductor. All our life we have studied the various laws in which such a blatant challenge to man, to science, that for 150 years we perhaps didn't notice those beautiful writings of Faraday, in which with a simple experiment was De Palma projected yesterday, lies the whole truth, and the truth which was to bring an event in the development and evolution of science, which as I predict would show it for itself, a change, a drastic change for the betterment. I'll first show you the slides so that you see the machine. Since you've already seen the machines of yesterday, I will just spend very little time and go over to theory. Please show the slide number 1. This is a machine which, after making certain improvement, having got almost every information from Roche de Palma, and I don't know how many times I have to thank him, and applying my own mind for the betterment of it and improvement of it, is the 4th machine on which I am carrying out tests. Let me clarify this aspect, gentlemen, that, ladies and gentlemen, that it is not at all my professional job. It is just purely a kind of a research in addition to that, as a hobby thing. So it is not a thing sponsored by the Atomic Energy Department. No, I'm free to perform, and that's what is being done. Now, this is a machine in which I have also added the Faraday motor, which De Palma mentioned, just to ensure that whether this principle is going to work or not. This is only the magnetic circuit. There is a copper disc, and I am using copper and carbon brushes with a view that if at all I use mercury, perhaps it would be for much higher ampere ratings, or potassium sodium eutectic, which Trombley is using. On the smaller machine, with a view to develop 10 kilowatt, 15 kilowatt, which could be used in the villages. These type of brushes, I find they are better. This is the generator part of it, and here power is being tapped from the center. Now, I want to tell here, without going more into details, it's exactly the same what Adam Bruce talked yesterday. The first time I learned about it, I thought of a new method by which I could improve the ratio from 1:3 or 1:4 to maybe 1:10, and that is, rather than keeping the brushes here in the center as I am presently doing, I'll keep these brushes here, so that when the current is tapped, there is absolutely no magnetic field going and leading to a motor action. I'll just talk on it briefly sometime. Next slide, please. This is just a different angle, and here it is clear. The two halves of the machine, brushes going inside, tapping power, that side the Faraday motor, this side the driving motor. Next please. I am getting 1:3 incremental power ratio. This is just the fitter and the foreman working on it just to give the relative dimension. Lights on please. Now, the improvement made already and the tests carried already give me the conviction that the moment the tabbing is being done on the top of the rotor, which I have written in my first article published in Magnets in Your Future, it gives you the possibility of increasing the incremental power ratio. And the detailed experiments now make me believe that that is going to be a grand success. It is therefore the test results that give me the conviction. Now, switch off the slides maybe. The slide is not needed now. You can switch off the. Now, Coming back to theory part of it. One question which all of us have brooded over, and even now we want to know, what is reality? Now let us dissociate the most fundamental essence of consciousness from reality for our present discussions, which are intended to be scientific, and say, leaving aside the consciousness, the rest of the inert entities of matter that we see, are those things the reality, or space is the reality? Okay, which one is more basic? Does matter as a reality produce space? Question might be a bit awkward and appear nonsensical, but that's not so. Because if we take the reality of the field, which we take in the present scientific convention, and it's the matter that produces that field, and it's the fields that continuously go in the whole of the space, covering everywhere, every point of it, then, as per the present scientific convention, the reality is spread out in the whole of the universe, not leaving even a point there. But this is spread out in the whole of the universe in empty space. Because, very rightly or wrongly, Einstein in special theory of relativity, at the time when ether was at the peak of its progress, by close of 19th century, had the bravery, the courage to say, for the phenomena that we will analyze in this paper, we will consider empty space. And he did consider completely vacuum space. Even as late as 1950s, perhaps 51 or 52, one of the beautiful articles of Einstein in Scientific American, he said, since we cannot get rid of the concept of field, why, in addition, recognize even the carrier for this field? Sure, if at all we are talking of the action at a distance, transmission of light, yes. But when we are talking of theory of matter, we may perhaps not be able to ignore. And in the same paper, Einstein says, Maxwell's theory or anyone's theory does not give a true theory of matter. That means the electrical densities, for instance, the structure of electron. He was very much aware of it. And precisely, I think it is said that in the last many years, Einstein did not form part of the current scientific knowledge. He agrees with many things. I tend to agree with it. Anyway, idea of my talking about this emptiness, whether space is real, more basic, or matter, as per Einstein, it is matter in its field that creates the space. But what I'm going to talk to you, it is just the opposite. A universe of space with not even a single particle of matter and not even a single field known presently is more basic and the primary substratum than matter. It is that which produces matter. It is that differentiation. Then let's talk of energy. Which is the energy which is fundamental? Gravitational, magnetic, electric, kinetic, or any name you give? I just don't know. Because if I say it is kinetic energy, it is more fundamental than electrical energy, I shall have to say mass which appears in 1/2 mv square is more fundamental than charge that appears in Coulomb's equation. We can't say that. Is magnetism more fundamental or electric charge more fundamental? Well, I will speculate anything I want. It's a good exercise for science and must go on for the fertility of mind and the brain. But a time is to come when we shall need to be discriminative. We shall have to draw a line and say, this is more basic, this is next, and this is next. So which energy we call basic? That is what I would talk. The energy which we shall call basic will be a dynamic space. And then we will show how it generates mass. Then we shall write an equation for mass, which today we do not have. And we need not have, because science, only when it is confronted with certain results it need to have. Whoever had produced power from space, in which the output exceeds input, such a surprising fact has taken place, we can't just no more overlook the space. Perhaps it was because of these very intuitive and sharp ideas that forefathers of science, and especially A. Michelson, I could get one beautiful quotation which one American student had sent me about 10 years back. And that's indeed beautiful to read today, because my theory is going to be somewhat like the prediction what Michelson has made. While Michelson's experiment laid the foundation, as many believe, for the special theory of relativity, and others to come to the conclusion that ether is not needed, it so happened that Michelson himself, having already performed the experiment in 1899, he had said, suppose that an ether strain corresponds to an electric charge, ether displacement to the electric current, ether vortices to the atoms. If we continue these suppositions, we arrive at what may be one of the grandest generalizations of modern science, namely that all the phenomena of physical universe are only different manifestations of the various modes of motion of one all-pervading substance, the ether. The day seems not too far distant when the converging lines from many apparently remote regions of thought will meet on some common ground. Then the nature of the atom and the forces called into play in their chemical union, the interaction between these atoms and the non-differentiated ether as manifested in the phenomena of light and electricity, the structure of the molecule, the explanation of cohesion, elasticity and gravitation, all these will be marshaled into a single compact and consistent body of scientific knowledge. I have never come across any statement so prophetic, having completed my work in a very, very preliminary stage though, yet having so much of repercussions, so much of effect on not demolishing the present science, but providing a base to it. As you yourself will see as we go, I will first again make it a point that this is a theory for which I have no references, and yet from the postulates and the new equations, you can derive Newton's equations of gravitation, you can derive Coulomb's equations, you can derive Einstein's mass energy equation, and so many things. I would therefore, at the end of the talk, would request you to please ask me the fundamental questions, because the work is entirely at fundamental level. Please show the first slide. Next one. Here, what is shown is an irrotational vortex of space, and space has been defined as a continuous, incompressible, non-viscous, zero mass entity. Now the question is, why do I say zero mass and non-viscous and so many things? I say because I want to start from that plenum and introduce in it the physics of creation of mass, so that once and for all we say, oh, this is the way mass is created. Therefore it has to be zero mass. The concept of density, like this, which appears in all our computation in material media, even in the assembly of molecules and structures and plasma and all that we know today, there is a concept of density. I want to say that it is this concept of density that is no more applicable when you go to the interior of an electron. That is the limit to which science has reached. The scientific knowledge is reaching the limit now, and a transition is to take place. It is therefore the concept of mass, concept of density, to which we are so much sticking, and without which we don't even feel like putting a mark on a sheet of paper. We will have to get used to a medium which is still a real entity, incompressible, mobile, zero mass, zero density, non-viscous, and we shall derive all these material properties having first evolved mass and charge. Again, first slide please. So this irrotational vortex of the space, in which velocity falls inversely as 1 by r, just like the relation which the mathematicians developed by the close of 19th century for hydrodynamics in an ideal fluid, is the one that I coolly adopted. And I found that when I take this variation as 1:1 by r, I am being able to explain the properties and the known quantities much better. To my great pleasure, after I had finished more or less my theory to 75% of its stage, again an American scientist sent me a beautiful book written by an Italian scientist, Todescini, Marco Todestini. His age might be 90 years perhaps now, and he's in an association which I saw de Broglie's name. A serious man, it seems his name was also recommended for Nobel Prize. Anyway, when I got his book, I just felt so happy because he has used the word, all these superfluid, he calls it. I had written in my work, the space is superfluid. Zero, the only difference was he did not believe in zero density and zero mass, and I believed and I have put it so that it gives me result. But all the rest of the properties Todestini gives, and he explains most of the phenomena. Michelson's model experiment with the dynamic state of vacuum, and to that extent, it was an encouragement that people like that who have independently thought, somehow I am not very far from the truth, at least there is someone who is also thinking the same line. So with this property of the space in the interrotational vortex, the only postulate that I have made is again from Einstein alone. Einstein says material body cannot move at a speed faster than light. I say not only material body cannot move, the vacuum itself will break down where it is rotated at speed reaching c. And since I had to create the electron out of this vacuum, it became essential because I needed a mechanism by which I could create, as in an irrotational vortex we get a discontinuity at the center, what we call singularities. It became essential to find out the mechanism. So the postulate is the universe of space in a state of without matter and without field is in a rotating state. And the postulate says the speed, wherever it increases, in whatever part of the universe exceeding c, like this in the vortices, a breakdown takes place, and due to that, particles are created. Now, next slide please. Here is the particle that has been created because of the rotation at c at the diametrical plane. Now, if the vacuum without matter broke down, what is here? So I chose the word void because here this void is defined as a fieldless spherical hole in space, whereas space is non-viscous, mobile, continuous, incompressible in it. So this is a true vacuum and this is a void. This void doesn't have vacuum, so it cannot sustain any field. Now what really happened? When the irrotational vortex was formed, the entire volume within it went a limiting speed circulation, and if you take a disk here and you just take the volume integral of the velocity, whatever you get, I defined it as mass. Electronic rest mass is the volume integral of the speed of rotation. In other words, here is a new definition for mass which now has a dimension, length raised to power 4 upon time. And the charge was defined with the surface integral of the rotational velocity. So you get a new equation, charge is equal to surface into c. And with these two beautiful equations, it became possible to straightway derive E is equal to mc square, which really gave me a kick, and I was so happy about it, just by imagining the collapse of this hole. In other words, whenever there is a creation of matter, the speed of circulation goes at limiting speed c, and you have a definite size of void. I have discussed in my book the details of it, of instability and things like that. Those interested would see, here I would say that there is a dynamic stability of this void, space spinning all around it. So what spins is not void, because inside void is nothing. What spins is an interface. And these charge equation and the mass equation, they now do the rest of the job, in the sense that they derive that the matter, the energy created is the energy equivalent due to the rotation and breakdown is mc square, because we use these equations now. Now what happened to that energy? In an incompressible fluid, a spherical front was formed, and the instant the electron was created, a spherical front went throughout the whole universe as if telling that it has been created and energizing it gravitationally and electrostatically. That was the time when the electrostatic field, by virtue of rotation of vacuum, was created. And that was the time when the gravitational field, by virtue of dispersion of energy from the center of the electron and its energizing the whole universe, was created. Gravity got created, electrostatic field got created, leaving beside the center of the electron negative energy. I was glad hearing this word. I knew I'm going to use this word. So the electron at its center has a negative energy, and the whole universe is a positively energized thing, gravitationally, electrostatically. Initially, I must share this with you, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to be smart and to catch the non-etherists that they don't permit etherists to talk of ether. I said I'll make an electron which has a hole at the center. So naturally the whole universe has got to be ether. Otherwise, how a hole will remain in a hole, and then what is matter? The entire wish of mine started with a kind of vengeance that let the center of the electron be like a hole. Is it possible to explain like that? Then they can't say you can't put void and void. Surely, what is the existence if the center is a void and the universe? So space automatically gets filled with ether. And no one can stop me getting massless because I have given an equation now. Now, if I take a volume of space, this will have zero mass. But if this volume of the space encloses this electron, mass is void volume into C, there is a mass. Now, what is density then? Many electrons together. This also say electron, electron. Now we will say density is this plus this volume upon density. So we derive this. Now, charge. What is charge? Surface integral on this. Then what is positive and what is negative? And this aspect has been done by Professor Sokolov of America. He sent a book to me, Dual Ether Universe. And when he got my book, he says, look, Tewari, you should have sent me your book that you are calling one-way rotation positive, other-way rotation negative. Perhaps I would have thought whether I should write the book Dual Ether Universe or not, because all that you can do is just say that this way rotation is electron, other way rotation is positron. There's only one charge in the universe, call it electron. I have defined which way to rotate with respect to an observer looking at it, because there are phenomena known and you can do it. Then, if the same electron is looked by you, you look at it as a positron. If both stand side by side, depending on the orientation, they are either electrons or positron. So the negative and positive aspect of charge, I would like to have some water, please, if possible. This aspect of charge is explained by rotational aspect. Now, we can derive Coulomb's equations with this simple model, and we prove that the electric constant is directly proportional to 1 by c, where c is the velocity of light. And permeability constant is directly proportional to 1 by c. The moment you have put c there, it starts appearing, and then gravitational constant is no more an universal constant. And so other day somebody read a paper, I was happy to hear, because in my first book I wrote, gravitational constant is not. That is why the neutrons and protons are falling with different velocities, because the gravitational constant with each entity has necessarily to change, because the fundamental one is with the electron. Now, next one please, next slide. Now in this one, next slide please, we already discussed this. Yes. Now, the same model expanded. Here is the c velocity, universally falling, measured by r, so there will be some velocity like that. At any space point, all we have to do is to find what is the vortex velocity field, that is vacuum is flowing there. Because of this circulation at what velocity, we have to find out that acceleration, and straight away you can derive that electric field expression, and it is from this derivation you get Coulomb's equation. And you feel so happy when an electron is there, vectors remain the same, except that they become inward vectors, but they remain the same. Physics doesn't alter there. But now I say proudly, oh, it is the vacuum which is moving there. It is not that I will not try to picturize it. I will picturize it. The electron has a center. I can't do anything without picture. this banning of the picture had become such a big hold of the human mind for the evolution of this, especially for those who cannot work without drawings. And it took a decade for my own bosses to say, you can't work without drawing as an engineer, don't try to develop physics. Whatever it is, gentlemen, what happens is that at a point, it is the velocity field, the vacuum motion that gives rise to the electric field. So every time you should think dynamic state of vacuum is creating electric field, electric potential. Now, next one please. Here, I got across in the book, The Feynman Lectures of Physics, a lovely model of a vortex line. And he says, have a light please, have a drum and open one end of the drum. Then fill the drum with smoke. Light please, give a tap. On the other side, you'll get a vortex ring. So I carefully looked at it. When it is going out at the other side, which direction he has shown in the sketch. And I find it was shown clockwise direction. So, if a vortex ring, by virtue of being clockwise with respect to observer here, is necessarily moving here, which we can do ourselves this experiment, that gives me a way, okay. So I would say that the electron, when it goes out like that as a vortex, then I will call it an electron. If that is so, then the current flows opposite. Is it following that Karstru rule which electrical engineers know? Is it interaction with the magnetic field okay? Yes, it is. And after all that, the definition that I gave, that if an observer is at the place where vortex lines is written and he looks at the electron, it will be, if it is going away from him, it will be clockwise. And an observer here will look at a positron is coming to him because he will look at opposite direction. With these two lines, the interaction between the two electrons become magnetic and they do attract. Just like the hydrodynamics vortex lines, it completely fits into the model with absolutely no exception, as if two vortices are interacting. All that you have to read is that. And two electrons going, only difference is, if this is the line of the electrostatic field, here, when the electron moves relative to space, these lines become magnetic lines. Magnetism and electrostatic at a particular point to detect, we have only to say that it has moved. When I find magnetism, electron is moving. So the magnetic field description comes right changing state of this. Now, coming back at this point itself, since we are talking, what is gravity? We said the energy energized the whole universe, but in an incompressible medium, when you pushed out a small volume of space, radially there was a radial displacement everywhere in the whole of the universe. Acceleration, the field of acceleration, the gravity field is directly proportional to that radial displacement. And when the electron collapses, when annihilation takes place, the gravitational field became electromagnetic field. It is the cause and effect. It is a problem since we have not, I don't say we don't, since we don't have a theory of this kind, we feel to discover gravitational field independently and we want to unify the unified field theory. What is happening is when the electrons collapse, we know annihilation light takes place. So whatever was the electrostatic field and the gravitational field at a particular point, it decayed. The decay of fields, gravity field is light. That's the conclusion that is reached with this particular model, and we have to start believing into it. Fortunately, unfortunately, we can derive the equations. And one thing which a physicist or a mathematician, an engineer likes, that we should be able to derive the equations from the first principles. So we get that in this. Next one, please. Now coming back to the space power generator, but before I go there, I'll make a cursory mention of this, that the only change that has been made in this model is, if I imagine an electron like one of these holes, the void is there. Now, as per my model, the electric field comes all the way from infinity or wherever it is up to that, whereas in the modern physics it goes all the way at the center. So the only disturbance that has been done to this theory is drilling a hole there, spinning it, making a dynamic model, and filling the space with a highly peculiar kind of ghost kind of thing, which is truly right to be called as spirit or Akash of the Vedas or whatever you call it. If an electron is spinning and spinning and spinning, because the question that energy of the electron, why it is not getting dissipated is wrong, because energy is energy itself. Electron is energy itself. Dynamic space is energy itself. What is the meaning of energy getting dissipated when it is itself is energy? So the question of dissipation of energy for a rotating electron doesn't take place because of vacuum out of which the electron is formed is a non-viscous entity. The concept of mass nature does not know in space, and therefore there cannot be a viscosity in space. Now coming back to de Palma's model, here is the rotor cross section, which is shown here. All that he is doing is, this Faraday anyway did, instead of electromagnets rotating with this rotor, here, he's rotating it. In our conventional generator, it is here. So the source of magnetic field remains out in our conventional generator, whereas the source of magnetic field rotates. Now, it so happens that since Faraday himself had done this experiment that even if there is no relative motion, there is a voltage being produced. So voltage anyway is being produced, and the moment you close the circuit, then why is it that when the electron, in this case, flows from here to here, it doesn't cause the proportionate drag on the motor that is driving it. Whereas in this case, when this is seated outside, not rotating with that, it causes, if not equal drag, more than that, because efficiency is always less than 100%. Since it is verified in Germany and USA, and since fortunately I get quite a few letters from a lot of enthusiasts on this, I freely go on giving de Palma's rhymes to them, pardon me. So I feel that believing the result, the interaction of magnetic field and the electron has to be seen carefully with the space vortex theory. And here is the electron, here is the magnetic field. Due to virtue of rotation, we shall straightway apply now the formula of surface integral of velocity charge. So since he is rotating it, he himself wrote to me in one of his letters that, don't you think, Tewari, it's a big, the whole rotor is a big electron? Intuitively, yes. Qualitatively, yes. This rotation is creating a velocity field, is creating a charge, so we can know the charge equivalent produced due to the rotation. This charge equivalent is interacting through the velocity field with the neutral atoms, loosening the orbital electrons, and the magnetic field pushing them. Now, if the magnetic field is not only pushing them, it is also rotating with those electrons. In a boat, two people push and pull has no effect on the outside. So as long as you can contain the magnetic field in this machine and have very little leakage, you will get a lot of high efficiency, and the secret is out. And we know where nature has been just deceiving us, that any body, if you rotate, it develops field which has a charge equivalent, which we can now compute. Alright, so what all I did is, he sent me some very precise results of de Palma, Trombley, and I put it by deriving a power equation from my theory, in which mass equations and charge equation has been used. I found that Trombley is being able to take out about 80 or 90% of the power, what total power it should have. Then I also carefully tallied these things. And day after yesterday, in one of the talks, one of the speakers, he said that people have a tendency to sit down and then cook up the results. Yes, I did try to cook up the result, because that's what we do. We sit and see if it is going to be more, going to be less. That is not cooking up, but that is tallying. And once you are wrong, second time you are wrong, then you are led to a proper result. So I took all the result what he had sent to me with the permanent magnet rotation, in which only some 100 amperes was produced and only some few millivolts was produced. I found they are also tallying in a similar way. And that time I neither knew my equation, nor he knew he was going to send me the details which is going to tally. So all the results that he sent, I wanted to verify. And after the verification, I found that the equation that comes out with the use of mass and charge, because otherwise, if you do not take the what you call inertial, if you do not take this velocity field into account, where else the power can come? So the conclusion we draw, any body conducting or not conducting, it rotates. It develops a sort of a charge equivalent of energy inside, which interacts with the orbital electrons. If it is a conductor, if you put magnetic field, you will get polarity if it is a conductor. If you don't put magnetic field, we don't know of it. Polarities are not found. Now if that is so, then why not we apply this surface integral, velocity integral of surface to the Earth? Yes. So Earth should have a charged ionosphere. Oh, it does have. Why not we apply it to Sun? Yes. Sun has a very high charge around it. Then they should move relative to space, then only magnetism will want. Yes. Then perhaps there is no need for within the Earth for the terrestrial magnetism. Things like that, some beautiful results they follow from this, but all fundamentally. It gives us a direction. For instance, now there has to be a single vortex only. Where is the single void only? Where is the question of fraction of a sphere? That too when it is a void. So there cannot be a fractional stable charge. So the existence of quark does not fit in at all in this theory. Other limitation, there is no particle other than electron which this theory will ever accept as a stable particle. Neutron must necessarily be consisted of electrons. Positron, the electron should have a space vortex around it to give it a charge property. Up to that I am very much convinced, but a lot is to be done on the nuclear structure. But the theory seems to be giving results, and I am very sure more bright minds will work on it, and in due course of time, perhaps this theory will give better results. Next one, please. Yes, this is the interaction of electron. We were taught in engineering college to conceive and do like that. I went on conceiving in only when it happened to be also like that. Here is the electron. This is the way it is moving front. This is the magnetic field. If it moves this way, a reaction from the space is to be taken as magnetic field. Now this electron, when seen from this end, here is the vertical magnetic field. So here the fields will be opposed, going up and coming down. Here they are strengthened, so it gets a push this way. All that we have been doing by picturizing it, true, Faraday believed it in its reality. It is later on we started picturizing it. He never said magnetic field is not real. Neither anyone else also that way seriously speaking. So we can have the complete dynamics of electron. Which way it should move, how it should react, parallel electrons. The moment it becomes a moving electron, it develops magnetic field, so two electrons are attracting like two electric current. Very interesting pictures of electric current is drawn from this model. Electric current doesn't become a thing that you have to go on pushing it and each orbital electron has to do work. It's a suction kind of an action, and many more results. You can derive Planck's constant, give a little bit of a blow at the foundations of the quantum mechanics, but yet quantum mechanics everywhere is just not wrong. You can derive angular momentum. You can just derive permeability constant, I said. You can explain annihilation phenomena, and you can say why gamma radiation is 10 to the power minus 10, because from the results of De Palma, and before that, from the known results of electronic charge and electronic mass, I came to the conclusion that this void radius should be around 10 raised to the power minus 11 centimeter. And if there is a little bit of a difference here and there, that's perhaps better results with these machines to be able to give us this. Next one, please, if there is a slide at all. Yes. Now, after a lot of experiments, and Khan, I think, which Bruce said, and then lots of results of Bruce. So at present, I am working on this machine. I have not put this, and I find 1:3 ratio. And I have in mind a lot of modifications and believe that within a year, there should be a slightly different machine, not only this, but this machine dimensions are good enough for those, and they have published them in Magnets in the future with the view that people can experiment, and they write to me, and it's for the betterment and evolution of this machine. Next one, if you have any. It was not necessary to show that, but this is the machine I have taken to Hanover. In a great hurry, I wanted to insert these big brushes inside, and all that was to be shown was the ratio. So 1.75 was the incremental power ratio, highly inefficiently designed machine, but it did the job. It showed to people that yes, so much of current is indeed coming out, and for instance, output was 345 watts, and DC voltage was 600 millivolts. In the machine that I showed you, it is 1.5 volts and 3000 amperes. It was a bit less, but by and large, people were satisfied seeing the rotation and seeing the other details. Any other slide, please? No. No, we don't have. Now, so the practical aspects and the theoretical aspects are very far-reaching results. Time is very limited. It's also not possible for me to go into the mathematics of it, but only 2 additions of mass and charge have done some wonders and making a cavity. I should not finish before I tell you 2 more instances. During this process of the development, when I wrote few letters to John A. Wheeler, he was indeed very kind to me. And he said he was trying to build everything in this universe in his 1930s, refer to my papers. And Professor Shield of America, he sent my paper to him, asking him that he should do a paper which should publish my results, his results, and Shield. Unfortunately, Professor Shield died in the heart attack, and the theory remained there. But in '85, the letter that Dr. Wheeler has very kindly sent me, he gives quite good consideration to this. He says, look, not very different from what theory of relativity has done, because they would not believe that, but he says you are doing it with simple geometry. You are making the space dynamic after all, but you are doing it with simple geometry. These words of encouragement keep those going who are thinking of spending some little of their time in these things. That is one. The third thing, which is very interesting, I was not aware that theosophists, who especially in America, many engineers and scientists of the retirement have joined this, and the headquarters of the theosophy happens to be India, RDR Madras. So they invited me for a talk there, and thereafter this literature, a decade back, came to America, and a lot of letters I got on Dr. Paul Little and many scientists, they helped me in spreading. The beauty is, one of the books, Occult Chemistry, that was sent to me, in that very clearly it is written that Leadbeater and Annie Besant sat one evening and they have the powers and faculty to look into matter, and they say electron has a cavity at its center. And this fundamental matter with a cavity in the center is surprisingly the particle which constructs the whole matter. And they say for the first time, matter has become emptiness, emptiness has become matter. When this was told to me in '76 in writing, I was indeed happy that a theosophist or a spiritualist or a Hindu Swami or someone, if he tells something and if it comes tallying with your thing, you do feel that an independent investigation is trying to confirm your results. I think I will close here before I forget. The universe now becomes a finite churning vacuum, existing in an infinite extension of void of the same property as a sub-micro entity is at the center of the electron. We have a beautiful world, tap power from anywhere. If Tesla said at the age of 75, as I know of a magazine sent to me by one US student, that soon he is going to predict that power shall be available at any point. It will be an eternal source, and it will not be depleted. For all purposes, it will be eternal, and it will involve electric and magnetic phenomena. And he also says the business for iron will also become unlimited, as written at his 75th birthday, as I read that. And I believe that perhaps it is the strong will of these forefathers which is concretizing the dream of mankind that space shall, by the close of this century, be a generator, a space power generator, and solve the problems of mankind. Thank you very much.
You have given your address here.
Yes, we publish books and stuff. If you need to publish in the United States, we'd be interested in talking to you about it also.
You just write to me, editor.
You have the card?
I have already given.
I can get it from Bruce. I didn't get it.
Oh, there's some more here, I think. No. There's one here, I think. Mine.
Oh, thank you. All right, thank you.
So that's why I said, Bruce, that that was the time of big vegetation. The first later, 77 or 78.
Well, it was the same way in my little world too, because when I first saw this evidence, I was in shock for 6 months.
Yes, it is like that, because when you say here, you see the machine pumping out power, and I got so anxious to see, later on. Fortunately, by God's grace, I had resources, I would say that. See, an engineer in the project, you can go on using that. Now, those two boys that you saw on Twitter, and all the time they work on it. So it's a good thing. At least there's some. And the great thing, if you as an engineer start doing this physics, people say, oh, there's something wrong. Fortunately for me, I've survived that criticism. I didn't.
It happens all the time on breaking a new idea. Right?
Oh, yeah, it happens.
Well, it goes with the territory. I mean, you shouldn't take it as a person. Don't take it personally. It's just part of being a pioneer.
Good.
Well, this was a very enthusiastic and terrific talk. Thank you for whatever you sent in my direction.
I said I told the truth.
All right, I agree.
Created much excitement.
Did I?
Yes, oh yes.
I was telling him,
Lecture, you say?
while talking, you get flow with the, and you have to keep to 1 hour's time. Every other speaker has to speak. So, what is its impact on quantum mechanics particularly? I want to say. See, as a certainty principle, so you get a joke because Planck's constant is an universal constant. The day you derive it, you are jolting quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
You see, that to that extent. But the beauty is it doesn't destroy or damage any other part of physics. It only gives below.
Right.
Masses this,
Right.
charges this, and then you take off.
That's and Boyer was trying to derive the same thing in his theories of zero
Do you
point
know, I forgot to talk about Descartes. Oh, so bad. Do you know what Descartes said? Descartes said atom is a vortex, it is a hole at a center.
And
He didn't know that electrons are going to come. And for Descartes to say that at that time is something fantastic.
there's many models, vortex ring models for charge. In ether, you see that?
But not with the hole.
Well, when
It's in the center.
they spin it, it's like a vortex ring that has nothing in the center.
Yes.
Flows through.
What happens here, you score on the physicist because you have brought a discontinuity at the center. And I tell you, this again, Einstein supports. Einstein says continuous field variation in the whole universe and discontinuous mass points in space are anomalies.
Inconsistent. Yeah.
Oh,
Inconsistent. The moment you drill a hole, there is no mass point. It stops there. Then infinite energy of electron gets removed. Your,
You don't have to do renormalization.
your integral starts from RE rather than from 0, so you don't get infinity. That's why they're not being able to, slice this theory because it's just giving results. And it's so simple.
See, and also he has a theory of inertia, which is very fundamental. No other theory.
Interacting with the fabrics.
Well, they
sounds like your theory.
Well,
Yes.
all right, but
quantified it.
there are different ways of looking at the same thing. The most important thing is what they'll lead us to, and all theories are just theory. I mean, even a theory is a theory. I mean, the idea that you can describe things this way is just an idea, and so each one of these takes us a little further, and we don't know what the ultimate. I don't know whether there is any ultimate description. The ultimate universe is the universe itself. They're just beyond description.
Yes. Yeah, it is beyond. It is
So in
indescribable.
each case, we just make approximations to do engineering.
Well, or to help us move on to the next experiment.
Right.
Very
To predict
true.
an
It is
experiment.
indescribable. You have reached that stage, that's it. That's why I cut off the consciousness, from the top. I start the inert matter.
Oh, excellent. Inspiring.
Thank you.
All right, we just got to calm down a little.
Well, you got to come from a position of reality and certainty to know what reality and certainty is.
Maybe born that way.
But you know, you got to be looking for it to find it.
Well, true enough. True enough. But
what we're doing is we're adding to our reality.
we are
We're
adding
taking
to
magic
our
and turning
reality.
it into science.
That's right. But it doesn't help once in a while to have a little clue from somebody that's a little further ahead on the path, you know, to say, well,
But is that true always? We
It
follow
is.
those and then people
of
follow
course
us.
it's true always, except when egos interfere, and we don't like to talk to people because we think we know it all, or we're authorities. We think we have something to lose. You see, that's what gets in the way of this process.
Look at creation and see how much you don't know. You would look. And how could you think that?
It's easy. It's done through money. Done through giving people orders, you know, and telling people what to do because you're paying them. You begin to think after a while that all life functions on this level of activity. There's nothing deeper. And it's real easy to fall into it because society supports that kind of activity. So,
6-pack of beer and Oakland Raiders.
you know, it's like the idea of Star Wars. Here, let's have it. We spend enough money, we can have anything we want. And that's not true. I mean, there is a limitation in money itself. That even with all the money in the world, without any spiritual motivation, you'll never get the ideas, you'll never have the insights, you'll never know what to do. It's a self-limiting situation. So thank God.
Somebody once said that there used to be a time when money could buy happiness, but it's too expensive now, so we have to go within.
I don't think money can buy
Well, you know what I'm
happiness.
saying? Back when things were inexpensive.
Well, that's a kind of, maybe it
We should bring that.
Okay. Now, where stage of advancing to where you're going?
I think I'll go within a year.
You have a prototype and you are testing them.
There it is.
So I come out and what you call
They have some money.
full model, outdoor scale.
6,000 license.
Yes, and I get from Bruce's. Then at that moment,
I've heard about it.
What's happening right
Okay,
now?
give me your impression, somewhat of a prediction. When this becomes public information within your government, try to paint a picture of the difference of the reactions between the world and the American people are much more energy conscious and a lot more. It just seems that the release of this information is going to have two different reactions from different countries. That your country will be a lot more open to developing it and encouraging it. Whereas
even European countries. Last year I was in Germany. Many European countries would be say Germany would be open to accept it soon if it is not already. And I am getting personally letters from individuals from many countries.
My boss now, who I hired,
But governments letters really have not.
presidents that are hired help.
I would say this.
Americans, I find only individuals, plenty of them writing to me.
He does what he does.
And since Newman's motor,
In 2 hours.
the government has had a kind of a conflict. Therefore, I don't know whether in Newman's case the government is against. Therefore, if one goes to U.S. government, whether they accept it or not, I would know that.
Yeah, well, Adam Trumbull had his similar thoughts with going to the government. Mr. Trumbull was going to the government with his work and having trouble. Now, it would seem that if this became an international phenomenon that was being utilized internationally for purpose of energy generation, that the American government would not be able to keep a lid on it.
Yes, very true.
So you feel that this is something
Yes, yeah, I feel that very soon, since the technology will spread, definitely in India and Germany, and in some European countries, US government will straightway come out and offer to UK. I'm very sure of it. I'm very sure that by the close another 5 years, maximum 5 years, not more than that, will be the time when there will be space power generators, construction will be all going on. I'm very confident.
And that's a result of the technology that's without a shadow of a doubt now.
Absolutely no shadow of doubt.
No, and it's
Because it's a method by which you put the brush at the top and take, so you have not passed through the two, the air gap through which you take the conductor out. You have not passed through that. If you take from this, then the ratio becomes
So the